Hello! Oh, good. Humans are here. Sorry we're late today. We were doing screenshotting, which you'll see my beautiful graphic design later. But welcome. How is everybody doing? We have a cool thing, so I would love to know what part of the world you are in right now. If you type it into the chat, we should have something cool come up. But yeah, how are folks doing? Where are you at? Hello! So, we're late today because we were trying to get screenshots up. Ooh, did you put this on the screen? This is very exciting. You can see things pop up on the map. I'm very excited by it. And we were late today because people were just so excited about telling me what they spent money on. So it was pretty exciting. This is very cool to see this map. I feel like we've covered now officially many time zones where people should not probably be awake right now. But happy Saturday night and or Sunday morning for like one of you. That's such a cool map. That's very exciting. I also was rush making an espresso because it feels weird to have a donut without an espresso. So I thought today we would talk about stress spending, and I had just so many people say that they have lots of stress spending things to talk about with the pandemic. So I felt like it would be a good topic. I kind of realized that there isn't necessarily good advice for this. Like I have normal life applications for how to eliminate stress spending in your life. And then pandemic life, it kind of is like, it's easier to just say, hey, if you survive this year, you're doing great. Spending less money on stress things is, it's gravy if you can avoid it. But for a lot of people, it looks like their stress spending was actually just delayed purchases. So I'm very excited about that map. That was very exciting. Yeah. So how are folks doing? There's cat on your lap. Oh, and that's Joe. So it's actually morning there. So we had an office kitten earlier, and like an hour ago could have had a kitten cam, and then she just like walked out. So I'm a little disappointed. Maybe she'll make an appearance later, but we had talked about, while people wait, having a kitten cam that's just like on the cat sleeping while the countdown before the stream is going. And I thought that would be great, but the problem is that we need a cat that agrees with that and stays in one thing. It sounds like food. There's lots of food lots of food is kind of a lot of people's things. Marcella said so much takeout. That's been one thing that's been very fascinating to me, is that takeout hasn't really been a stress spend for me. It's been more like I feel like I should spend. And I think it's because for me, I don't typically do a lot of dining out. And so I kind of felt like, I should be supporting local businesses. I should be supporting local restaurants. But I didn't really realize that ordering takeout food is very, it's just not a thing I usually think about. And so I feel more frustrated by the process than by cooking. But I also was justifying it even before lockdown. I got takeout at least once because I've been working so many hours. And so I was just like, I could just do takeout. It would be great. I also just realized I don't think I tweeted this. I'm doing real good with promotion for this live stream, but lots of folks are here anyway. Coffees home delivered. They were great. That's awesome. Is it made coffees, Joe, or is it like coffee beans being delivered? I'm going to try to tweet this out while we're live streaming. So, Vika says, I risk my life to support my local coffee shop because they don't deliver coffee. Hopefully it's not risking your life. I voted on Tuesday, and we have vote by mail here, but I still like the act of like dropping it in the drop box. And I'm really happy I didn't have to like go to a polling place and wait in line. I'm grateful for that every election. But one of the things that, so normally I go drop, and our closest ballot drop is waiting in a drive-through ballot drop in a McDonald's parking lot. And so I will just like walk, and stand in line like I'm a car, and then I'll drop my ballot in the slot, just like in the line of cars. It feels kind of cool, but because of the pandemic, our local library is shut down, and I live just as close to the local library, so I was like, oh, they did a thing because the library is run by the same people that run elections. They're both run by our county. They had converted all the book drops at the library into ballot drops for like the week before the election. And I was like, when else am I going to have the chance to drop my actual ballot in the book drop at the library and have it be like okay to do, and actually it will get counted? So I went and did that, and I went out at like 6:30 in the morning with my mask on or whatever to drop off our ballots in the book drop, which was as exciting as you think it would be. And then there was like a line of socially distanced people waiting to do takeout from the coffee shop right next to the library, which is like a super sweet coffee shop. It got bought by new owners like a year ago, and I've like wanted to support them. But I don't tend to do coffee out very often. And but the line of people all wearing masks, like standing 6 feet apart, waiting for coffee, was the most people I had seen in like 2.5 months. And I just was like, I had a moment of like, should I buy coffee just so that I can see people? I did have a kind of shouting through masks chat with one of the old ladies that was waiting for takeout coffee. I ended up deciding that I didn't really know what I wanted, and also I needed to get home and get back to work. So I decided not to get a takeout coffee, but I should do it at some point. I've been trying to frame my local business spending around what things in the neighborhood will I be extremely sad if they go under. And obviously, like, my purchases are not going to keep them from not going under, but I just keep trying to, like, what's important to the character of the neighborhood, what made me want to live in this neighborhood in the first place. And so I keep trying to think about those businesses when I think about, like, where I'm going to spend my money. Marcella says, sad, we live out most delivery radii, so takeout has been our life. Yeah, I guess I've been only really getting delivery, not takeout. I think I mentioned this before in a live stream, but we have this extremely weird perk with Chase Sapphire Reserve, I believe, which is a pretty expensive card, and I mainly have it for the travel benefits. But one of the things that they did with the credit card was that you got $60 a year to spend on DoorDash. And if you paid with the card, you got free delivery on DoorDash. It was like, you got like the premium membership or something. And so I spent my $60, which is why I bought money on takeout, but it like didn't appear in my monthly reports because they didn't actually cost anything to me. The only thing I was doing was that I was tipping people. And initially I was tipping people in cash because I tend to have a lot of cash around because I used to get paid partially in tips in cash. But they, now they're not doing cash, they're doing no contact delivery. So I started like tipping in the app, but I'm finally out of my $60. Anyway, I've been doing delivery because I get free delivery fees, so then I can just spend it all on the tips for the drivers and stuff. So yeah. Ooh, Vika has a company delivering coffee beans. That's very exciting. And Joe is getting made coffees, cappuccino and hot. How, Joe, I want to know more about this, coffee delivery situation. How often is this happening? Is this the kind of thing where you order and then they bring it? Or are you on, a subscription for cappuccinos? And how do I get on that? Because I want that in my life. Ashley is one of the people that is baking, but not sourdough. You feel the need to specify it. I saw a meme. It might have been on the Oh My Dollar forums, but I saw a meme the other day that was I'm not saying a sourdough starter culture started the pandemic, but we do have to look who's benefiting the most from it. I have never seen so many people making sourdough in my life. Stephanie says, I paid for pizza delivery with a gift card and there was no way to tip with a gift card. So I had to figure out how to do no contact cash tip. Yeah, that's been one of the like frustrating or challenging things about this. We do live in a building that's like, if they get buzzed into the building, theoretically I could probably like leave cash in the hall. And if it's a very quick amount of time, I don't think anybody in my, like, on my floor in my building is going to come pick up some cash that I label. But who knows? We had someone steal in like 10 minutes in our lobby, steal like a 12-pack of Costco tofu that a friend dropped off for me. And then we left a sad note and then it came back. So it was someone in my building that stole it. Or someone that, like, I don't know, was regularly hanging out in our lobby and felt bad when they saw a note that we said, no, that large pack of unopened tofu was our groceries and not whatever the heck. Vika says that half a kilo of coffee costs 449 rubles. That's a really good deal, right? Now I'm struggling that maybe I don't actually remember the exchange rate because that sounds like $5 or $6 US, I thought, but I thought it was like roughly 100 to 1, which would be incredible, but all right. There is oh, Aaron's favorite bar in Nuremberg is doing drink delivery now. That's very exciting. How do we get that here? I also heard that non-alcoholic cocktails was the thing you could get delivered now. Like quite a few local bars, because they still can't have people in, are doing, you can't deliver mixed spirits in our state. It's like illegal in our state. But what they've been doing instead is like mason jars with all the mixers for a cocktail. And then you could like get that delivered to you and mix in your own hard alcohol in your house, which is kind of a cute way to support local restaurants. And of course, because it's Portland and we're hipsters, everything's in mason jars. But there's a lot of places that have like very fruity visual cocktails that are essentially like jungle juice. And I thought that was like pretty cool. Marcella's in Florida, I believe. So Marcella says our bars are doing takeout cocktails for the past couple months. Yeah, but Florida doesn't have any regulations, right? If I recall correctly, if you're in Florida, I feel like there's no rules about that. Maybe not as much as Louisiana, though. Because I know that. So, so Vika says right now in USD is about 69 rubles. So that's still a really good price for half a kilo of coffee. So that's like, what, $10 US or something? That was very quick mental math. I feel like the thing that this live stream is teaching me is that I'm not as good at mental division and multiplication as I thought I was. My like quick math has been harder for me to do on the live stream than I thought it was going to be. Well, so should we dive into the different stress spending, or should I introduce you to the donut so you know what the donut is? And then we'll come back to the stress spending. I'll introduce you to the donut. So the donut for today is, it looks like a bagel is what Aaron said, which is kind of true. It's definitely like the least fancy looking one that we've had, but it's a salted tahini donut. So it definitely smells very sesame-like, but you can still tell it's a donut on the bottom, right? Because it's got like grease and everything on it. So I'm kind of excited to try that one. I wasn't like, there was one donut I wanted to get, and then I waited until like half an hour before the donut shop closed, and they were already out of it because they do run out of flavors a lot. But I figured I hadn't done the salted tahini yet on a live stream. I haven't had it yet either. So now that we're doing live streams every week, I pretty much only eat donuts on the live stream, because when we were doing them every 2 weeks, a donut would sneak its way in, usually between a live stream occasionally. But now that they're happening every week, I really don't need a donut more than once a week. I don't need a donut every week either, but I definitely don't need it more frequently than once a week. Joshua says that Virginia is doing pickup cocktails and delivery beer. Pickup cocktails. So you can't get the cocktails delivered to you, but you can get... That's really fascinating. I had the other day, I was home and Aaron was like out filming something at the studio in a different part of town, and we got a delivery that they like, normally they'll just knock on our door and then like run. Or sometimes not knock on our door and leave without delivering things or letting me know they want to be let in. But I was really curious when they like arrived, because I was like, I didn't expect a delivery and why did they need me? And it turned out it was an alcohol delivery, although he didn't check my ID, which I can't tell if that's because he thought I definitely looked old enough to be receiving alcohol, or if it was just because he doesn't want to touch my ID and get COVID-19. He was very nice. He was in an extremely good mood. He was, I for all the delivery people that are still in a good mood right now are blowing my mind. Denise says, we went from no alcohol sales on Sunday a year ago to allowing restaurant and breweries to deliver alcohol now. Yeah, early on in the pandemic, there was something that was like, what are the things that the pandemic has revealed to be a lie all along? Or like, what things were we previously saying were impossible that suddenly became possible within the course of like 2 weeks? And I feel like one of those is like the illusion of regulations around alcohol, and here like around marijuana and marijuana delivery. Like a lot of like sin regulations, you're kind of like, oh, maybe that's not what we need to worry or focus on. I used to regularly say, like, so the sin, like, there's nothing legislators like to legislate more than the size of the underwear and nipple covers strippers have to wear. I swear, like, the specificity of regulations that city governments pass about how wide someone's thong can be, or how, like, large your nipple cover has to be, or what qualifies or doesn't qualify. It's the breadth of that is shocking to me. And I go, is this really what we need to be focused on in public policy? And I think one of the things that we've learned is a lot of these sin regulations, or a lot of these like things that we attempt to do in public policy, a lot of them we quickly realized are not important when you actually have to deal with real crises. And I think it's all just the scams of life have all been revealed. Oh, okay, there's some coordination going on in the comments from people that are in the same places. So has anybody else been getting any, like, delivery of booze? Anybody that's not... So we have Virginia, we have North Carolina, we have Florida. Vika, I think, is too young to get alcohol delivered even in Russia, so I'm not gonna ask about Russia. All right, should we walk through the different stress spending that people have? So I asked people on a bunch of different channels, like, what are things that you've been stress spending on? And I assumed a lot more people, I was like, have you been stress spending? I know that a lot of people, because of all the uncertainty, for me, one of the things I tend to do when I'm feeling uncertain is that I want to save a lot of money, because saving kind of makes me feel a hedge against uncertainty. But honestly, things are so uncertain now, I think a lot of people are going the opposite way, where they are spending because it's something you can control in a world full of things you can't control right now. So there was a lot of different categories of things people spent on. And when I asked for stress spending, I was kind of expecting people to tell me the kind of things that I had spent money on that were not necessarily important. They weren't like urgent things. But it turns out a lot of people kind of bought things that they would need otherwise, but they had like delayed gratification. And then once lockdown started, or the pandemic started, or they lost their job, they sort of just gave up and actually spent money that they had been putting off. So one of the first things, wait, which one is this? Oh yeah, so a lot of people bought practical things. So this is like the category of people that bought things that were like in the electronics / things they needed category. So a lot of folks said noise canceling headphones because suddenly you are working from home and you're working from home and you realize like, oh, you have a very loud child and you need noise canceling headphones if you're going to get any work done. One of these that I thought was kind of interesting was someone who said they bought a Bose speaker. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. You didn't buy headphones. And they said, actually, the big problem was that working at home all the time, my body just could not handle having headphones and earbuds in all the time. They also said the Bose speakers were totally worth it. I like Vlado's thing, which is that his doesn't really fall into the electronics category. It falls more in the I needed a thing to do category. But because New York City has ended curbside recycling of electronics and it is illegal to throw your electronics in the trash in New York City, someone still tried to throw out this 2006 Apple laptop, and so he's been trying to repair it. And I don't know, whatever passes the time. And then I did have a lot of people that ended up buying stuff that was like essentially electronics that they needed, like, you know, better upgrades to their home internet and things like that. Another category that people were buying a lot of, which kind of falls into the essentials suddenly that became a necessity during the pandemic, is stuff for kids. And a lot of people suddenly are home with their kids, and had quite a few people that are like, anything I can do to keep my kids entertained. So, workbooks, stuff to be able to complete school online. A lot of folks, I liked the baby jail one, which is just a lot of people suddenly found that having their kids full time while they're also trying to work, they needed to create more space. I particularly liked Esther's, aka Scrunchel Faces there. She said 2 identical play domes for my kids from different sites because it was back ordered everywhere, and I thought I'd canceled one after the first arrived. They arrived at the same time. So, and actually in the same truck. And I feel like I had 3 or 4 people respond and say they ended up getting duplicates of stuff, either because they forgot or because shipping and ordering things has been so screwed up lately. Amanda doesn't drink, so she doesn't know anything about the cocktail situation. Vika also doesn't drink, but would like to inform me that 18 is the drinking age in Russia, so she is old enough. I like how many people are informing us how they can order alcohol. Joe says we ordered a heap of stuff the second we realized we were stuck home with kiddo and had to had it all turn up at random in the post throughout the past 2 months. We were just talking about this the other day because a bunch of stuff that a couple months ago, I talked about when I got my stimulus check, I ended up buying like I bought quite a lot of things, and some of them, they were coming from all over the world because I was buying from a bunch of small businesses. And so things are still trickling in, but honestly, the initial rush of like a lot of packages coming has kind of worn off. So I've been honestly forgetting that I still have things arriving. And we were talking the other day about how you need to space out your purchases because the days are all running together now. And if you are going to order things online, you have to do it at an interval where they arrive every couple days so you have something to look forward to. I don't really think this is like great financial advice, but if you need to punctuate the days, just saying, spread out your orders. Denise says, I bought more stuff I didn't need than I have in the past 10 years. That's the same thing for me, is that like I'm buying a lot of stuff that I wouldn't say that I don't need, but I'm buying a lot more stuff that is on the edge of essential and frivolous, right? Like it'll be like, oh, I need to get, I would like some comfortable clothes because suddenly I'm working from home all the time and I have mostly impractical clothes. And it's like, do you really need that? No, but it becomes easy to justify. Clothing was actually a really big one for a lot of folks. I think we have a whole screenshot of all of the clothing ones. But yeah, for me, like, clothing is I tend to stress shop and stress fill up carts and then not actually buy clothing. But I always think the act of shopping for clothing is imagining the different life that you would have. And I feel like right now, because life is so different, it's either a combination of imagining the clothes that I would like to wear when I can, like, go integrate back with society, or me being like, oh, I have this completely different lifestyle than what I had before. Now I need to acquire this wardrobe of, like, you know, fuzzy jumpsuits and, like, comfortable sit from home pants instead of, like, crinolines and button down collar down shirts. I have been thinking about how I need a robe, and Katie said a sheer red Marboa trimmed robe. I said pics or it didn't happen, but I haven't gotten any yet. But there was also a lot of fancy sweatpants. My friend Erin said sweatpants, who ran 2 campaigns that actually went into the general on Tuesday. So Erin has been doing a lot of work from home for many hours a day. Caitlin said fleece footy pajamas with rubber duckies on them, which I would like to see that contrasted next to the sheer red feather-lined robe. I just feel like that's 2 different styles of work from home. And Lat said these extremely expensive overalls, which are adorable, are they not? Yeah, Joe says, oh gosh, those expensive overalls are cute. They totally are cute, aren't they? Yes. I almost bought I responded to Lat and I was like, I almost bought vintage cat themed overalls, this jumpsuit, and I was like, I get it. Overalls feel like they're kind of they're comfortable, like homeware, and you can wear them a bunch of times because you only need to change the shirt to not smell, but they're like, they still kind of feel like you're dressed up for work. So I think for a lot of people, they feel like the thing to get. Will also said, one of those up there is Will, who used to be on the Oh My Dollar show and might come back on for an episode soon. But he said he got the Zoom Freak Employee of the Month shoes, and I don't know what that is, but I think we need to Google it. Yeah, Marcella said, I am considering purchasing shorts for the first time in a decade. I'm having the same thought. Like, I never wear shorts. I have, like, a pair of shorts that I probably acquired 10 years ago that are, like, the shorts that I wear when an activity calls for wearing denim shorts. And other than that, I don't have any shorts that aren't, like, not meant to be worn outside of clothing. They're like things that go under dresses or something like that. And I've been kind of thinking about how I want them lately. Amanda says, I would die in the summer without shorts. So, Amanda, I think you don't wear dresses very often. I wear dresses, so I tend to have airflow. But recently I've been thinking about the fact that I've been wearing a lot more pants. My dresses tend to, like, I tend to wear crinolines. My dresses tend to be more like office work stuff. And I was thinking maybe I can just get some comfortable shorts to wear around the house, since no one's going to see me for like 6 months anyway, from anywhere from the top up. So Denise says, I definitely want to buy loads of clothes, but I won't have anywhere to wear them when I go back to work full time because I'm wearing scrubs. I'm liking my fancy pandemic fashion dresses a little too much. That's the problem, is that I don't have to wear scrubs to work, but, like, I also own a lot of clothing. So any stress buying of clothing I'm doing is, one, unless I'm buying comfortable stuff for home, is completely impractical for my life until I go back to work. And 2, I work in very casual workplaces, so it doesn't matter what I wear to work. I dress, like, fancier than 90% of people in Portland. Vika says, I want a pretty dress, but I'm not alone in the house 100% of the time because of self-isolation stuff. Yeah, hey, instead of a pretty dress, maybe you can get some sort of robe that's, like, subtly feminine, but then won't raise. I'm a big supporter of robes right now. I feel like robes are in between dresses and real clothes. Like pajamas that make you feel fancy. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking you need to get a feather-lined robe. I feel like that's, it's on both sides of things. Amanda says, I hate dresses. I feel naked in them. That's how I feel in shorts, Amanda. I feel like I don't have enough padding between my legs and the outside world if I'm wearing something that doesn't have like a crinoline underneath. This is really, it's just, yes. Cargo shorts have excellent pockets to carry snacks. I feel like the fact that you said that, Amanda, probably indicates that fashion is not a high priority for you, because I don't think cargo shorts have ever been uttered by someone who, cares that much about fashion. But maybe you have very fashionable cargo shorts. I bet they're coming back because the 90s are coming back in fashion. Welcome to Lillian's Donuts and Fashion Livestream. See, Denise said satin robes are the best in humid summer. Okay, I like how this is not actually turned into how to conquer stress spending and is just turned into suggestions of things to buy on the Oh My Dollar live stream. It's true. Snacks are very important. Speaking of which, food was an overwhelming one. Did we do food already of categories? Because food and like practical items was one of the like overwhelming ones. Yeah. So quite a few people were like, oh yes, all of my spending is either food, which is something you need, but I think a lot of us are stress buying it. I just kind of gave up on my grocery budget. Like, I'm still staying under budget, but that's because I'm just kind of moving money from other categories into the grocery budget. But I tend to have pretty low grocery expenses compared to a lot of people generally, and we don't get the luxury of price shopping right now. But also, I've declared that we don't have enough snacks in the house every single day for the past, 3 weeks. Because I'm not the one that is allowed to go to the grocery store, and therefore I am the one that gets to whine about what isn't bought at the grocery store, and I have been very disappointed in the lack of snacks in the house. So, but then there's also a lot of people that just bought practical things. So Mark bought a 12-pack of bananas and a 24-pack of bamboo toilet paper. I asked if the bamboo toilet paper was good, and he said he hasn't started using it yet, so. Stephanie said, stress eating? I have no idea what you're talking about. My husband is making me brownies right now. Yeah. Here's the thing. I think I've decided that there aren't many pleasures in life right now beyond the gratitude that if you're still healthy and doing well and financially secure, but I need regular input of things that make me happy, and I can't do a lot of the things that I generally do to make myself happy, but usually eating food makes me happy, at least for a temporary period of time. So, my weekly-ish nachos have now turned into twice a week, pretty much. So, yes. Well, everybody is, raspberry cookies in the oven. This is great. I like that we're all just very excited about food. Okay. And then what other categories of things were there? Oh, there was the random category of things that people bought, some of which were just things that you need to understand what's going on in your life. I particularly liked the accidentally bought the same red toaster oven twice. Yet another one of those, what is the days? Did you actually buy things? Did you not? Shipping is weird. Did it actually come through there? And then this is, I think the category of people that mostly are buying things that they wanted. I liked Tara ended this. Tara got, a green screen for Zoom backgrounds, which I guess if you need your Zoom to look real fancy, then that's great. But I liked this. About 200 pounds of birdseed. And she felt the need to clarify that she did not get it all at once. But also, pandemic hasn't been going on that long. She must have the chunkiest birds ever in her backyard right now. I imagine she's just, feeding some, some penguins who are bumbling around in her backyard. Oh, yeah, Joshua said that you're brewing tea every day. I still don't know how to pronounce that kind of tea. I'm sorry. I should, because I really like that tea. But the Yeah, there were quite a few people that were like, oh, I'm buying things to make myself be a fancy person. So it would be like food or something like that, but they're doing it to like slightly upgrade what they were getting before. And then I particularly liked I bought a bunch of poetry. And the poetry one was, I said there was another meme, once again, I think it was on the Oh My Dollar forums the other day, that was a like, what type of reader are you during the pandemic? And one of them was existential poetry. And that's one of the types of readers where you just need that. Vika said, Oh My Dollar is a congregation of people who like food, discussing money, food, donuts, food. Did I forget to say food? Yes, that is correct. Oh yeah, we forgot cats. Cats is very important. We were talking about having me do a new like faux intro, have people submit faux intros for the podcast where they can say like, Oh My Dollar, a place where we talk about cats or something like that. We can like sub them in. We had some good suggestions. I forgot what they were, but yeah, like every week I'd switch it out with someone's thing. All right, should I eat this donut and then we'll get back to some stress spending and then maybe I'll give some actionable tips or maybe we'll just commiserate about the fact that we all have things to stress by. But Ashley says this is the most forum-like live stream yet. I know. This is one of the problems with the Oh My Dollar forums is we're presumably a financial forum, but also half the time we're telling people to spend money on things. Also, we're always talking about food. So, okay, so this is a salted tahini donut. I felt like we're talking about food so much, it's very important. All right, I assume that's tahini on the top. I don't see the salt, but maybe the salt is inside the tahini. Whoa. This is super creamy. The inside is like very fluffy. I thought it was going to be like a traditional cake donut, but it's like a raised donut. It's not filled with hummus, Denise. It is. I'm having the weirdest experience where the taste says salad in my mind. It says buffet bar, like, probably because I feel like half the time when I'm at a buffet, because I'm vegan, the only thing I eat are like cauliflowers, carrot sticks, and then I dip them in hummus, and that's like the only thing vegan that you can eat at like half the buffets. And smelling it, it just immediately brings back memories of buffets. But then it's sweet and fluffy, and it's a very confusing experience. It's not outrageously sweet, I would say, but it's not a savory donut, I would say. I would say it's like, has a savory top, but it's definitely, yeah. Vika's writing in Russian, so I don't know what's going on. Oh, yum yum looks tasty, okay. But we can see it in Russian as well. Very important. All right. Does anybody have any questions about this tahini donut? It's very sticky. And also, Ashley will be happy to know that I definitely forgot a napkin again. It's so sticky. Probably, at least partially because it's on the lights. This is my hands, though. Oh, a napkin is being brought to me. Denise says the texture looks amazing. Black sesame desserts are my favorite at Japanese restaurants. Yeah, it does have that. A napkin has been delivered. It does have that kind of sesame taste, like the sesame balls that you get at. I usually think of getting them at Chinese restaurants, but I guess you also get them at Japanese restaurants. My absolute favorite ramen that I got in Japan is, I'm getting another delivery as well. My favorite ramen I got in Japan was this black sesame like ramen with like kind of a soy milk base, and it was so good. I have a kitten. We may have to move the camera though. Look at the kitten. Kitten cam time. Hi, are you gonna stay here? Are we gonna stay here? Yes. Everybody knows the kitten, I believe. But this is Dora, and she's unclear if she wants to sit. Oh, she's sitting. I think we'll get a zoom on the kitten cam. She's taken over my hand. I believe we are switching to a kitten cam. She's very cute. I hope she stays like this. Yeah, she's very cozy. Are we on the kitten cam now? Are we? I don't see it on there. Oh, it's just... I see. I didn't realize I was still in it. I thought it would just be the cat. Marcella asked if Dora is getting a sibling. We literally discuss if a kitten will appear a couple times a day right now. And now we've started talking about it where we're like, oh, if we get a kitten. And I think the point at which we switch to when we get a kitten is probably the point at which it's fully inevitable. And then she gets a friend. I wish we could just ask her if I wish we could just ask, do you want a kitten friend or do you not want a kitten friend? I kind of wish we had gotten one when she was a little younger, but I feel like we were traveling, both of us were traveling too much to have two cats back then, although maybe it would have made her happy when we were gone or something, I don't know. So, half the people I know have gotten chickens in quarantine. That's hilarious, Marcella. Okay. Ashley, why are people getting baby quails? I didn't even know that was like a thing that regular people have. Do people eat quail eggs? Are quite a delicacy, right? Aren't they like very fancy? Am I making this up? I don't know anything about this. Are quails cute? Because chickens are very cute, I think. She seems to say this. Apparently quails are domesticated. I had no idea. I thought quails were like only... Yeah. Good thing I don't use the same word for my cat that Mrs. Slocum uses. Who's that? She's very cute. I don't know what Mrs. Slocum is. Dora, do you want a chicken friend? I think we're switching back to the kitten cam. If anybody can tell if she wants a kitten by looking at her, just let me know, please. Because I think we would like to know. By the way, if you can see any part of my dress, it's covered in economic and like business newspaper headlines. So now we've really got all the oh my dollar. Character from British sitcom Are You Being Served? Are You Being Served the Miss Bucket? Miss Bouquet? Miss Bucket? Am I making that up? Is that the one that I'm thinking of or no? Anyway. Yeah, Dora would love to know. Anyway. Dora, do you want to present the rest of things? We can just layer the topics over the top. Oh, this is one of the last ones. Oh, yes. There was a lot of categories of people that bought things to entertain themselves in quarantine. So gaming was enough of a category by itself. Pretty much everybody wants a Switch, and no Switches are now available. I think you have to take that off the screen because you're blocking the cat. taking a bath, and that's the really important one. Dora wants a nap and cuddles. I like how everybody's telling me what Dora wants. Do you think that she would hate a kitten, though? That's the real question. What do you think, Dora? She's like, I don't care. I don't really care at all. Are we done? She seems to be contemplating her escape. Oh, she's so cute. She's so cute. She's so cute. I don't know what a quail looks like, I think is one of the key elements here of questions that I have. Like, what are they? Yeah. Kittens are easier than adults to acclimate to. Kenna thinks that Dora wants a kitten. Yeah, I mean, she is super cute. She's definitely super cute. And would probably like a kitten. And, you know, the problem is that I want a kitten that contrasts her, but then I've doubled the colors of cat hair in the house that I have to take off my clothes. Because right now, there's like certain color palettes you can get and you won't be able to see Dora's hair. But if we get like a little mustache cat, then we're going to have all this black hair in the house in addition to white hair. It's very important. All right. Last stress spending thing was a lot of people saying they bought DIY and craft supplies. Fabric is a whole subcategory. I noticed not that many people said they had been doing things with the fabric, but they said acquired it. That seemed to be an overwhelming amount of things. And like a lot of DIY supplies. I did like Bitches Get Riches one, which was a giant floppy old lady sun hat and more sunscreen because I'm spending all of my time in the yard and basically reached August levels of tan by the end of March, which I guess makes sense. One, protect your skin, important. Two, gardening is a thing to do. So it's just like trying to find a way to amuse yourself, and it's essentially supplies for kind of keeping yourself amused. There's so much going on this lap right now. I did like this one. I've probably spent $700 worth of graphic novels, nonfiction, sci-fi in the last 2 months, which I feel like is, in all honesty, you're probably doing a better job of supporting authors and everything than, you know, like Daniel said that he got a CBS All Access free trial, which I like that he stress spent on a free trial, but that's how they get you. I got a Hulu 1 month free trial because I wanted to watch The Great, which is a dark comedy based on Catherine the Great's life, and has it but it's in English, even though it's based around a Russian empress. But it's dark comedy, but it's historical fashion and high enough budget that it's actually pretty accurate historical fashion, and that was 90% of the reason I wanted to see it. I rarely pass up a good historical fashion thing. Are we on the kitten cam? Because she's real cute. Yes, look how cute she is. She's very cute. Ursula has been unintentionally buying pandemic prep level crafting supplies for years. Yes, suddenly you start to appreciate just how many craft supplies you really own. That doesn't mean that you don't need more of them, though. I have, like, as you can probably tell, I have an unreasonable amount of pens back here. But a lot of my pens have actually, like, I actually use a pretty high volume of pens because I use them for like signing notes and letters when I ship stuff out, but also because I just like them. Anyway, I actually did like a big kind of go through of them during the pandemic and actually got rid of everyone that really didn't work, rather than like my continually putting them back in the slot that they belong in back here because they didn't work. And I have been putting off, like, replacing those, even though I know they're the ones that I'm going to use, because I'm trying to make myself use the less common colors. But the pen that I did buy, which does not fall into my normal pen category, is I bought a tiny, adorable fountain pen And this was a stress buy that I got a write off as a business purchase or like a small business purchase because I bought it from a local shop that had to close that I really like and want to keep existing. But yeah, it's like a nice fountain pen. And I'd been very curious. I have a lot of trouble with my hands, as a lot of folks know, and I'd been really curious about if fountain pens would be easier for writing longhand. I can write longhand now, which I couldn't do for like 8 years because I'm on a medication that lets me grip my hands now. The downside is that while I can write by hand, and I'm extremely grateful for that, I tend to get a ton of fatigue and my hands really hurt after like maybe 3 sentences of writing by hand. And I had been told that longhand writing with fountain pens would be easier on your hands. And I have actually found it to be so true that I have been almost exclusively using the fountain pen and have abandoned all of my very nice pens that I have back here. The downside for me, though, is that this is the little grip that I use on most pens when I write longhand that lets me, like, have... Essentially, like, I don't have to grip as close in it. It's like a... What is it? Like an occupational therapy thing. Like, I got it from my occupational therapist. But it doesn't fit over the fountain pen. So, but it's been great. Also, it's very cute. Look how cute it is. This is a tiny little pink pen. It's got a cool thing. The big thing is that I have noticed that fountain pen people are really intense. Like, I thought planner people were intense, but fountain pens are actually, I think, a level of intense beyond planner people. We have to go to the kitten cam because someone thinks she loves to attack pens. And she thinks this is the greatest activity ever. Me dangling a pen. What are you going to do with it? She's like, I don't know. I'm going to put it on the floor. That's where pens belong. They belong on the floor. Joe bought the same fountain pen after. I forgot that you bought the same fountain pen. You got the Fine Nib. Are you using like a filled thing or are you using like a pre-filled ink thing? So Joe said she was having trouble like getting the ink to flow in it. But yeah, the forum does have a lot of pen nerds, so you can definitely ask on there. I found a lot of tips on like how to get the ink flow, but I haven't had any trouble on them. So, but I do like a medium nib, I believe, on mine, which I thought, oh, if I'm going to be writing longhand, I probably shouldn't go with fine. Are we rotating off my lap, Miss Kitten? Or are we... Oh. I lost my cat. That was a pretty good kitten cam session, though, I feel like. Oh. Joshua says, my handwriting's been illegible since I was a kid due to neuromotor items. That's why I started typing in 3rd grade. I started on a manual typewriter. Yeah, so I typed all through college. I mean, like, I learned to type earlier because I'm young enough that we learned to type in school, in, like, elementary school. But I typed all through college, and I had note takers for classes where it wasn't possible to keep up on a computer. So, like, calculus, I was able to do it. Most of it, I took notes in like law tech and stuff, but like I would have a lot of trouble in like macroeconomics where you just have these boards full of really complicated equations and typing them on a computer to try to keep up fast enough and like get all the different parts of the equation was really challenging. So for like analysis and macro and stuff like that, I had note takers, which was really nice because of my ADA accommodation. My school actually paid other students in my class to take notes for me, which was great. And it was such a small school, I would generally know who the person was, even though it's like supposed to be anonymous, like often that there'd only be 4 people in the class with me. So I got to know who took the best notes and like hope that they'd be in the same class with me if I needed a note taker. But I have been trying to write longhand since I have been more capable of doing it since I got on my miracle $7,800 a month drug. But I still don't have, like, I'm a lot better than I used to be, but I'm still like not like a normal person, normal hands, whatever that means. I don't have like a typical person in their 30s hands as far as my ability to write. So Yeah. Vika says there's a joke in Russia that doctors have illegible handwriting. That's a joke here too. So does your mother have illegible handwriting, Vika? I think that's like an important question. So one thing I discovered is like I learned cursive in school and we had to write in cursive for like half of elementary school, which I think they don't learn script anymore in school, but only like I have to like, some of cursive is faster, but my cursive is like this weird cursive half print if I'm not trying to think about it. And cursive is a lot easier to do in fountain pens than like print is. So I don't know. That's been one of the things that I need to work on. Joe, who is in Australia, says, I think doctors' handwriting is illegible worldwide. Yeah, I think, why is that? Is it because they're one of the few things that we look at their handwriting, maybe? I would say I actually haven't seen any of my doctor's handwriting in years because I've been on an insurance system in hospital where they do all the notes by computer. So did everybody else have to write in cursive in school? Is that the, like, we had someone on the forums that was like, I'm old enough that I remember fountain pens from school and didn't like them nearly as much. Denise says, as someone who has to review doctor orders for work, I agree that 95% of doctors have terrible handwriting. 5% are magical. So is the 5% overlap, like, is the really good handwriting, are those the people that have like engineer or architect handwriting? Because like quite often architects have like amazing print because pretty much they have a degree in like drawing very specific shapes, I guess. And gluing paper together is the other part of an architecture degree, I've been told. So Joe had to learn cursive in school. We got our pen licenses. What is a pen license? What? Do you need a license to have a pen? That seems like not a thing you should have to have a license for. That's too much government regulation. Maybe my Americanness is showing. What does that do? Amanda says, I've heard it's to keep people from forging their handwriting on prescriptions. Don't know if that's true, though. I think it's actually because they're all just very sleep deprived from med school. And it's just like one of the things to go. I feel like that's probably not, because I don't think it matters if their handwriting is messy. Forging is the same art anyway. You just have to treat it like not that I know anything about forging signatures. Claire learned cursive in school, but I don't remember being required to use it, except once or twice on standardized test. I remember that standardized tests were always the time where we didn't have to use it because they'd be like graded by machine, so we were told to print for standardized tests, but standardized tests are appalling. A University of California, I heard, is eliminating SAT and ACT requirements through 2024, and they're not going to require them anymore, which I think is really great. I think that standardized tests are crap. I get them as an assessment tool, but they should be used for overall assessment, not for individual grading. But I also realize we don't live in a, like, people in a lot of countries will have like A levels and O levels and like tests that the entire country goes through and everybody teaches to that test. But instead what we have here is like for SATs and ACTs, they're an extra test you have to pay to take on top of school. And if you're being prepped for it in school, is because you go to a fancy school, but then if you go to a fancy school, you likely also have a private tutor. Or they're like the statewide standardized tests that are not used for individual evaluation. And teaching to those tests is wildly unstandardized in the US because they're just there's different states that have all different ones. They have different achievement ones. And it's just, I don't know. Never mind. You're not here for me to. Ursula says standardized tests are also pretty racist/discriminatory. Yeah, that's actually why University of California said they're getting rid of them. Like, the big thing is that, like, they often make assumptions of a certain background, and one of the ways in which people can get really screwed up in, like, language or long-form math questions or something will have this idea, this basis of certain types of cultural knowledge. But also just the point of, like, learning to prep for the ACTs and SATs is just all it is a way to be able to learn to, particularly for the way the test is structured, and the people that do the best at that are people that actually have access to it. So Claire says, I think it was for AP tests. Oh, the writing in cursive. I guess that would make sense. I've blocked out all the AP tests I took. I took 11 APs, and I was only in high school for 3 years. This is too many AP tests. Although 1 or 2 of them I ended up deciding not to take the tests. So Joshua says, if it weren't for my SAT score, I probably would have ended up in a vocational school due to my grades. So where I'm from, vocational schools were like high schools mostly, because we had such a low graduation rate that you could like choose to opt in early to try to like help the graduation rate, which I think is great because they're required to pay for your high school as a public school, but often vocational schools are very expensive for-profit schools now at this point in this country. I had a really good SAT score, but it ended up, I think, not even being relevant to my college admission because I didn't go to college until like 7 years after I left high school. And by then I was like, I'm not going to take the SATs again. And they had changed the SAT grading. Anyway, I like how we just turned this into a talking about standardized tests. When I see how like A levels and O levels go in the UK, and like Singapore has one test that the entire country takes on like one subject, like that just sounds so many levels more stressful than the way standardized tests go here. But yeah. Amanda says, my brother went to community college just so he wouldn't have to take the SAT and then transferred to an online school to finish his bachelor's. Yeah, I guess that's a good point, Amanda. One of the reasons probably I didn't have to retake the SAT, because your scores do kind of like expire, was because I took community college credits. Because I technically dropped out of high school, it's complicated, we don't need to get into it, but I technically dropped out of high school and I only had a GED. So I had to take the ability to benefit test, which was the test to make sure you're allowed to get federal funding for going to community college if you enroll and want to get like a Pell Grant or something. So I had to take this test that essentially proved that they weren't wasting their money on me, I guess. Anyway. Marcella said, I was an SAT tutor. We guaranteed a 300-point increase or your money back. Holy shnikes. So when I was taking the SATs, they didn't have the 3 sections yet. They just had 2. So the top score was 1,600 and I got a 1,540. But multiple other people in my school got perfect SAT scores. So, and like got articles written about them. So I was also in the hospital when everybody took the PSAT, which is what gets you like National Merit Scholarship. So I never got a National Merit Scholar, but my school was like a fancy public magnet school. So it had like a board of everybody that was a National Merit Scholar or like semi-finalist in the front. And I just was so bitter about it because I never got to take the PSATs because I was in the hospital. So Marcella also said that she also got a 1540s. Yeah, I heard that because I got a 1540 that I could like apply to be an SAT tutor. I also got like I did the writing, which now is like part of the exam theoretically, and so you add up all those scores together, but I have no recollection of what I did, how I did like on the writing subject test on SATs. So the Joshua says, I remember those days. You're old. Over 15 years ago. Yeah, I know. It's been a while. Claire, do you really want to know the story of how I dropped out of high school? So it's super dumb. So I had most of the credits to graduate, and I had applied to college my junior year, like when people would normally apply in their senior year. I had applied to colleges, and I'd gotten into like a couple colleges, and I went and did a summer program at a college on the East Coast, and the plan was to like enroll in the fall after that. And all the schools I applied at, I had all the credits to graduate. So they just, it was sort of like going to get into college early. But I had a bunch of like mental health stuff happen what would have been my senior year, what would have been my freshman year of college. And so I ended up like pulling out of my freshman year of college, and like essentially we last minute enrolled me as a homeschooler so that I wouldn't be a truant, because you technically had to attend high school until you were 19 in my state if you were going to not be a truant, which ended up being very complicated because I had all the credits to graduate, but I really didn't want to go back to school that year, and I'd already like missed the beginning of the school year and was dealing with all this mental health stuff. So I, at that point, like took some classes at the local college instead. And then after like a year, it was clear I was just like definitely not going to go back to school. And I'd already like started a job and moved out of my parents' house. And so at that point, I took the GED, which required a lot of work actually to be able to take, because my school really did not want to lose funding. So the school district gets funding for each pupil that's enrolled. So as someone who is under 19 years of age, I had to get the superintendent to sign. Yeah, she's doing a lot of complicated stuff over there, so we'll find out. So I had to get the superintendent of the school district to sign off on me taking the GED, which was ridiculous. And meanwhile, I should have had all the credits to graduate, but my school wouldn't give it to me because I hadn't been enrolled in PE, because I had been a competitive figure skater. It's so complicated. In the end, I took a GED test, and then so I had something, because at that point, initially, like, nobody really cares about your high school degree if you have a college degree. And so the plan was, I'll just go do college, and then I won't have to worry about high school. But then I was a college and a high school dropout. And so I got the GED just so I'd have something. And then later I did some classes in community college, and then I enrolled in college when I was in my mid-20s. Once I was able to do it and have it be financially successful. And also I was like in the mental place. Also, a recession was going on, and I thought, hey, this is a good time to finally go get that degree. The thing that had been frustrating to me was that I would be very qualified for jobs, but they would just must have a bachelor's degree as a requirement. Even though it like wasn't in any way important to the job itself. Like even jobs like being a manager at a drugstore, they would be like, well, if you want to be a manager, you have to have a bachelor's degree. We don't care what in, but we need to prove that you showed up somewhere for 4 years. So I eventually went back to school. I'm really glad that I went to school eventually, and I'm also really glad I didn't originally go at the age of 16, 17, which was when I would have been there originally. So yeah. That's the long story. All of it came down to the fact that I didn't have some PE credits. But I wasn't going to show up for an entire year and only attend PE. So instead, I just worked. But I was technically enrolled as a home/unschooler. Claire said that is a roller coaster. That's what I meant by it's a really complicated story and just dumb. It's also one of those things where it's just like, it's all faded to the back of my mind. Like, it was like a big deal at the time, and now it feels so minor. But one of the reasons that I was able to get away with all of this was just because I had like a ton of privilege, and a lot of the other people I worked in a grocery store that year, and a lot of other people I worked with, people didn't believe that they had high school degrees because they were Black. And because I'm from a majority Black town, and there was just like all this baked in racism in whether or not you graduated high school. And I was just completely shielded from that because I was like a white girl, and I went to like a good high school before. So yeah. Joe said, that is so ridiculous to not have PE credits because you had done a competitive sport. So because I had been doing competitive figure skating and training like way more hours than whatever, throwing a ball at other people in a gym, before I even enrolled in the high school, I had like letters from my coach and everything. And like, here's how many hours a week I practice. And I had been like allowed to, I went to school late. I got out of school early. To go to skating practice. And so I had always been exempt from it. But in the end, it's one of the state requirements for graduating high school. And my school really didn't want me to graduate early. Here's the thing that I particularly love. My high school, which I went to for 3 years and took 11 AP classes in those 3 years, doesn't have my transcript. And because I called them when I was applying to colleges in my 20s, and I was like, hey, I'm just requesting a transcript, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, what year did you graduate? And I was like, oh, it should have been this year. It should have been this year, but I left in this year because I had left a year earlier. And they were like, oh, well, did you graduate here? And I was like, no, I didn't graduate, but I attended for 3 years. And then but the last year I was enrolled as a homeschooler with the district, and the school was like, oh, well, if you didn't graduate, we won't have your transcript. And I was like, do you just have no evidence that I attended this school for 3 years? Like, this school is like, it's a public school in a town that most of the schools were on what was called academic emergency back then, but it was a very good school. It was like, at the time that I was there, it was like the 35th best public school in the country. It had multiple Nobel laureates who went there. They were well-resourced as heck, right? Like, it's the only high school I've heard of that's a public high school that has chapters of alumni, because that's how much money they ask for alumni from. But they apparently just didn't have my transcript. I was never able to dig it up. I ended up applying to college without a transcript at all. So, yeah. It's quite a thing. Amanda said, my cousin quit high school because the only credit he needed was Spanish, and he didn't feel like he should have to learn another language, so he quit. Oh, I feel like learning another language is a helpful thing, and in most parts of the world, they start learning at a much younger age, but I understand quitting high school because they wanted you to just do one subject, so cool. Spanish is useful, though. I feel like learning other languages is useful. I feel like running around a high school gym for no reason, dodging people trying to beat you up with balls, is not useful. So, Amanda said he's kind of racist, so I'm not surprised, though. I mean, fair. Joe says the American high school system sounds confusing. Yeah, I mean, Joe, does Australia have the, UK, India kind of style of school where you have like the exams when you're like 16 and then you have the exams when you're like 18 in like subject areas? Do you do it the same as the UK because you're a former colony? We're a colony, but we were colonized long enough ago that we completely abandoned their schooling system here and replaced it with something I think is probably much worse. But Vika says, I quit college. Yeah, so college, like UK college, because of mental health issues. Everyone's so surprised. Yeah, I remembered that you were in college, Vika. Joshua and I will have known each other on the internet for 2 decades. Darn. I'm really realizing like how time is marching on lately. I feel like it. Although right now, we were discussing the other day, I was like, oh, I'll probably do this thing till January, so it'll be like 9 more months. And Erin pointed out that no, in fact, that will be 6 months away because I just mentally, it's still March in my head, I guess. So anyway, Claire, you asked for the roller coaster of the high school story. It's just, I don't know, it's dumb. Is college free, Vika? Is it free in Russia, or do you have to pay for it? Marcella says, I couldn't do PE to do health, so I had to take a class on sports injuries. I mean, that actually sounds like a cool class, I feel like. Was it helpful? Did you learn anything? Oh yeah, stress spending. Right. No, I'm just back to eating the donut. Night, Claire. I have no idea what time it is. Is it 6:21 already? Oh, man. So, anything else about stress spending that we should talk about? Stress spending. We're all going to do it right now. I like how this is just a social live stream, isn't it? I'm not actually giving any finance advice or teaching anything about economics today. That's fine. We ate a donut. We chatted about things. We learned about other things. Joe says they have a semi-UK system. You had to pick your subjects. 5 to 7 options. And then 15 to 16-year-old, these exams at subjects at 17 and 18. Yeah, so, I mean, that sounds very UK-esque. Very similar. Marcella says, my teacher was fired halfway through the year for inappropriate activities with students. Oh, great. I was in a school where, well, I mean, I was also in a school where we constantly got locked down by the SWAT team and we had bomb threats like every other day. So that was cool. But I was in a school, I think it was in 8th grade, and one of the teachers ended up being like convicted for inappropriate relationship with a student year prior. And every single teacher was like tuned to the court proceedings on the like public access channel every time they were able to do that. I guess it was back before you could just like check the news on the internet. But yeah. Oof. Also, one of the skating coaches I know got brought up on charges for inappropriate contact with a student. Skating coach I knew quite well. But the funniest, worst part, I don't know. The slight comic relief was that we actually have it on tape because it ended up being reported on the news right before I was on the news for waiting in line for Harry Potter. So somewhere I still have that skating coach that was like the main coach at my rink and like former Olympic competitor. I still have him, the news story about him getting arraigned on those charges right before I was on to talk about Harry Potter. Ursula said, I had to do a paper distance learning course for migrant farm kids because I refused to take the Mormon college online one because sex ed. Whoa. That is a lot. That was a lot in that statement right there. Yeah, we didn't have sex ed, functional sex ed in my school. Ohio, at the time that I was living in Ohio and going to school in Ohio, every year it was flipping back and forth between whether or not kids would get abstinence-only sex education or not. And the year that I took it, it was abstinence-only sex education. And yet there were still students whose parents would not sign the certificate for them to take it. But yeah, it was really great. The people that came in to teach us about sex ed told us that one of them had been born, even though her mother was a virgin, because I love how we're really just covering all sorts of topics in this live stream today. It's all over the place. Yeah, that was a mess. The fired teacher was also the sex ed one. Oh, that's so sad to say. I really hope. Ugh, I'm sorry. Ugh, gross teachers are the worst. My weird high school elective was music appreciation, and our teacher spent half the semester showing movies like Phantom of the Opera and Labyrinth. I think Labyrinth is the best thing to watch in music appreciation. That's kind of an awesome thing. I really wanted to take music theory in college. So I went to a liberal arts school, but it had like a lot of requirements outside your major. And one of the like groups of requirements that you could take was that math and music theory and linguistics were all in the like same category. I guess there's some sort of theory that they use the same part of the brain. And it was great for students who didn't want to take math because they could get out by taking music theory. But I really wanted to take music theory, but there just wasn't room to take it because I had to take a lot of math because I was an economics major. So I couldn't also fit it in. But I did take voice lessons paid for by my fancy school, and that was delightful. And the person who taught my... Okay, we're being informed that something very important is going on with cats right now.
It's a sparkly ball.
Oh, there's a sparkly ball out there. The cat is informing us that there's a sparkly ball. All right, I feel like we... Amanda said I had actual sex ed in 5th grade. It mostly focused on bodily functions. It was right before lunch. I had, like, not sex ed, but, like, they split up the girls and the boys so that we could, like, learn that we were going to get our periods and get pads provided by some company in 5th grade, but it wasn't really sex ed. I don't know what the boys learned about. Here's the kitten. She was meowing at her sparkly ball. All right. Should we all go to sleep? Do whatever they need to do? Stress spending. We're all doing it. We're in it together. I still recommend implementing waiting periods as a way of conquering stress spending, but I would say as long as you're not massively overspending, a lot of people are just spending on things that will provide them small degrees of, you know, a little bit of luxury in their life in this time of panic, or they're spending on things that are actually quite practical, like something to keep your kids occupied, or something like face masks or bamboo toilet paper. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to say. It's all okay. Stress spending sounds a lot like sex ed. Pretty much the same thing. We're all doing it. It's okay. Just do it safely. All right. Well, I hope Vika goes to bed because it's 4 a.m. there. And everyone else, please have a lovely evening. Make sure to wash your hands. And I will see you on the internet, and we'll be back here next week for maybe a slightly more informative one. But this was like a nice social time. And whew, all right. Okay, apparently Vika just woke up too early. Okay. All right, everybody. Have a good night.